Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to preview Polaris 30 and talk a little bit about Fury 11 that's happening the same weekend. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. It was a relatively quiet week this week, so we don't have a lot of news. I was out cornering a fighter for his first kickboxing fight.
Yeah.
That was fun. So not a lot of grappling. We had some grappling events locally. You reffed and coached, and but generally speaking, not a whole lot on the national stage.
I coached as I was reffing. It was very professional of me.
Not supposed to do that.
I know.
You've thrown me off now with the intro. So not a whole lot of news this week. Biggest news is that I think this week we got it. We've known for a while now, but we're starting to get more details on for the Craig Jones Invitational for that it is happening. It's going to happen yearly, and I'm guessing that in a couple weeks here we're going to get an announcement of more information about it. There's just something brewing, I think, coming up with the Craig Jones Invitational.
Really? You think?
I think so. Now, again, that's, who knows?
You never know with him.
You do never
and
know.
I feel
with Craig Jones.
I feel like they don't tell him for that reason too.
Seth Belial specifically talks about not telling Craig Jones things so that it doesn't really get released publicly. So I think we have something coming up soon. I'm very curious. We have more events that are using the CGI rule set. We talked about it last week with finishers, and so very curious. Again, I would love to get some more clarity on their rules, but you got to have events in order to have that happen. So hopefully coming up. But yeah, really not a whole lot of news this week as far as grappling. We have the IBJJF Crown that we're going to preview this coming week because that will be the following week. But let's talk about Polaris. We have no other news. I am amped. This looks like a fun card. There's some interesting matchmaking here.
And it'll be in the middle of the afternoon.
Which is the best.
Yeah.
Polaris is always a lot of fun. I love the production value on it. Last card was great. I think for this event, we talked about it last time, Polaris is going to use that 3-round scoring thing.
Yeah.
So some of these matchups, I think when we preview these matchups, I want to ask you to help me keep that in mind because I do think it makes some people in some of these matches a little bit more of a live dog if they can have successful early goings.
Yeah.
So I think this is main evented by Carlos Condit versus Michael Venom Paige. I want to talk about that one last, mainly because it's just two kickboxers that were never really known for their grappling going against each other. It's a neat matchup.
Carlos Condit, didn't he do a bunch of Darces?
Did he?
Wasn't he a Darce guy?
I know him as a kickboxer. Michael Venom Paige has a lens lock. He has a corkscrew lock in Bellator.
Yeah.
They are both
I thought Carlos
very
Condit
good grapplers.
had some stat. He had a stat of some crazy grappling stat.
Huh.
But I could be wrong with this.
So you can look that up while I go
look that
through. Again, pretty much just a preview of Polaris this week. The main event here, really the main event in my eyes that we're going to talk about is going to be, where is it on your list here?
What?
Dante.
It's in the bottom, isn't it? Yeah, right there.
Ah,
Ellis Younger.
Dante Leon versus Ellis Younger. We have everything out of order this week, unfortunately. That's the one I kind of want to spend the most amount of time on. We also have Helena Crevar versus Nina Blackman. We have Keith Krikorian and Jed Hue facing off for the number one spot in the 155 division. Potentially that person who wins that is going to go on and take Ethan Crelinsten on coming up. So again, some fun kind of storylines for some of these matchups, but I want to talk about Dante versus Ellis Younger. I think this is straight up a really difficult match for Ellis Younger.
Yeah.
Because Dante is coming off of beating Giancarlo on points at ADCC in the absolute, beating Mika Galvao.
Which is crazy.
That you beat both those guys. And you beat you beat the 77 kilogram champion and the 88 kilogram champion back to back at ADCC in the absolute. And the absolute's always a little weird anyway, but that is a crazy stat. Ellis Younger and Dante Leon have almost met a couple of times now, but most recently at 2022 Nogi Worlds, where Dante took that division and Younger took third in that division.
But we don't think they went against each other.
From everything we looked at, again, for some reason, Ellis is actually really hard to find consistent stats on. We went through IBJJF, we went through Topology, we went through Flow Grappling. He doesn't have a BJJ Heroes page, unfortunately, which is usually kind of the unified thing that we use because BJJ Heroes typically has the best results of anything. So from what it looks like, I don't think these two guys have had a match together. We watched through a bunch of matches from Younger, who we've seen on Polaris and Grapple Fest and a lot of things over the years. ADCC Opens, ADCC Trials in 2022, mostly.
Yeah.
The thing that strikes me most about Younger is he's a good passer. He's a pretty good sweeper, but he's a pretty good passer. We watched his match with Kieran Kachuk, who's also on this card for that 2022 Nogi Worlds event, and that's how he's able to beat Kieran, was with his passing, with his top pressure, with his positioning. I think versus Dante, that really won't be an avenue that he can leverage towards victory.
No, I don't think so.
Dante is used to going against bigger people, which honestly, Dante kind of does better typically against bigger people. He does phenomenal in his division, but he typically has like his biggest issues when he comes up against people in his actually the top guys in his division.
Yeah.
He has the loss to Pato. He just recently, Dante, beat on Andy Farella with a really quick arm and guillotine sub at Fight Pass Invitational.
Yeah.
So Dante's coming off of a really nice hot streak as of recently. And I just don't think, I'm trying to think of the guys that we see that are able to get past Dante's guard. And offhand, I can't really think of anyone.
He's not going to really let you pass his guard.
No.
He's going to like wrestle up, or he's going to do something. He's not just going to let you flatten him out.
Right. Which is sort of like the style that Younger likes to pass from. He likes to really control your top side shoulder, get you low, get on your hip, lever you down. And like, I just don't think that's something that you're going to be able to do to Dante. I mean, especially because that is a style of passing that works a lot of times when there's size parity or slightly bigger. Dante's used to competing like in absolutes relatively frequently. When Dante goes into absolutes or super heavyweight divisions, we all kind of laughed and then saw him have a lot of success and went, oh, he's that good.
Yeah.
And he has a game that I think plays really well with people who have a size and potentially a strength advantage on him. Like, his game doesn't tend to break down like a lot of the lower weight grapplers. Again, Dante does most of his sort of championship work.
Ellis Younger isn't that little. Like,
no.
We see a lot of Dante's problems coming with, like, the little,
like Pato.
Like Pato.
But it's also Pato who's one of the best leg lockers in the world. Like, he has that sub. Like, Pato beat Dante Leon at who's number one with that outside heel hook transition that he caught Dante with. But other than that, I'm trying to think of other guys that have subbed Dante recently.
PJ
Barch.
Yeah. Two of them used to go at it at Worlds because they're in the same weight class for Nogi Worlds. And
but
they just kind of trade back and forth. Like, one goes to the ground, one stands up, one goes to the ground, one, you know. But I think Ellis, it's going to take a lot for Ellis to get ahead of what Dante is going to do, and I think Dante's going to be able to sub him faster than Ellis will probably get a game started.
Now, Ellis's last match on Polaris looked really good. I forget who he faced exactly, but it was a really nice like counter drag to get to the mount, to get to the back, to get the finish. He looked really good, but I just don't think that that's going to be something he's going to be able to do on Dante. Dante has phenomenal wrestling. I think he probably is able to beat Ellis in the wrestling.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, is Ellis going to pull? Is Dante going to pull, honestly, and wrestle up? Like, we've seen a lot of guys recently do that.
And the other thing is, it's not like Dante can't do 15 minutes or 10 minutes or however long this match is.
Yeah.
Because I want to say it's a 10 because it's one of those weirds like
3.5 or 320, 320 matches. Yeah.
Because I remember being like, well, why can't they just give us a number that's actually divisible by, 3?
Give us 12s.
Yeah.
So I think that Dante's pathway to victory here is, I think that we'll probably see Dante wrestle, but we have been seeing Dante for a long time now, actually, very willing to pull. In the Polaris rule set where he's not really penalized from pulling, I kind of think that he will try to wrestle initially, and then he'll either work a takedown. If that doesn't immediately work, I could just see him pulling.
Yeah. It
wouldn't surprise me. Then he goes up under the legs, and he sweeps to top position, or he goes
into the legs
or directly into the back. Dante's a really, really good leg locker. But I think that recently we've seen him going for a lot more chokes.
Yes.
Like, he seems to want to get to the back and really get that guillotine on Varela. If you shoot into him, he's going to look for that. So.
Well, but Varela's legs are ginormous too.
Also, Varela's notoriously hard to leg lock.
Yeah.
Like, Varela's notoriously hard to get anything but a choke on. And so I think that kind of informed what Dante was going to do. And also just looking for, Varella's going to come in super hard into your chest with that double leg. So you're much more likely to like, go, cool, I'm going to play a counter guillotine game. Dante has a crazy squeeze on that guillotine. That makes sense.
Because he...
You pissed off Dante Leon.
No, but I mean, he does bicep, curls with like 100 pound weights.
His 100+ pound like curl and like press ups with 100-pound weights are just crazy.
Yeah.
For a guy at Dante's size, like that's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
How do you think? I think Dante ends up subbing him. Do you think he decides to go into the legs, or do you think he tries to go for the back or the front headlock there? Where do you think that Dante decides to take this game?
Probably front headlock.
You think from like a snap down or from like a go behind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that just makes more sense. And it could be something as easy as he does it immediately, goes immediately to his back and chokes him out in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me either.
That is kind of how I think that Dante will play this. Again, just mainly, not that Younger isn't really good. Again, those placements he has in those big tournaments are indicative of that, but where he makes his game work really well is in that passing and even the sweeps. And he, again, like we said earlier, Dante I just don't think is going to play in that same way with a lot of the guys that Younger has been able to pass or able to turn over. Like Dante's just kind of not. He's going to be able to get out and tech away from you before you're able to settle his hips down and flatten him out. My only other thought would be the parallel with the match that Dante had versus Elijah Dorsey, that he lost the ADCC Worlds in the weight class.
Yeah.
That's my only thought. If Younger can potentially get on top of Dante, either through a pull and settle him down and just be doing more from the top position, it is very possible that Younger could potentially get a decision. Get a decision
but I
win.
don't think. I think you have to have weight and you have to have. Well, I guess Dorsey isn't that much bigger than him.
But Dorsey also notoriously plays that smothering, stifling game. Like a lot of the TLI guys will play that like stifling game.
Yeah.
And I just don't think. And also, Dorsey is one of the best guys, if not the best guy at the weight class for doing that. I don't think I can point to a guy at 77 kilos that is better at that sort of game than Elijah Dorsey. I wouldn't say Younger is better than him at that. Like it's definitely a pathway to victory, and it is a pathway to victory that we've seen Younger use before. Like, hey, I'm going to maintain top pressure. I'm going to get to the side. Yeah. But I just don't think Dante will. That typically comes when Younger is against someone that they can get drawn into that kind of game and will also meet your level of inactivity with that top pressure game. I just don't think Dante stylistically will get drawn into that kind of game. And that's, again, why I just think the style matchup is really poor for Younger here. I'm going to go Dante. I'm going to go... I kind of think armbar for some reason. I just think that he'll try to turn him over from the guard and he'll get the arm in transition. Weirdly, it's not something we see Dante do a ton, but for some reason, I just think with the way that Younger keeps his chest and tips low, Dante's going to be able to violent arm lock sweep and then get like a Choi bar off of that for some reason. This just something in my head that kind of just now popped in of like, I just think that with the low position that Younger likes to keep, Dante will use that to go and isolate the arm.
That makes sense.
Who knows? I think a choke is more likely, but for some reason, I'm just going arm on this one for Dante Leon. Is Dante the champion right now at Polaris?
I believe he is.
Okay, at welterweight, right?
Yes.
Okay, we just looked this up on earlier, and I'm blanking now exactly. Polaris did something great. If you go to Polaris' Instagram, they have a lineup of essentially all of their champions, and you can just look, and they posted it recently. It's just a list of like, oh, he's not the champion right now.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah, because welterweight is Mateusz Jasinski.
Oh.
So did they have a match recently? Did he beat him?
I don't know.
We've had a lot of Dante matches recently.
My brain is not working right this second.
I think the winner of this one is probably going to go on to face Mateusz.
Yeah.
That's, again, regardless, that's a really fun match. But yeah, Polaris did a thing recently where they posted all of their champions, which I think is great for organizations to do. And I wish more organizations did that, because it gives you some kind of, at least like us, gives us some storyline context for why certain matches are important. So that's Elias Younger, Ellis, I've said his name a bunch of different times, versus Dante Leon. Anything else on that one?
Nope.
Let's move into another storyline match here. Keith Krikorian, who is the featherweight champ for Polaris,
yes,
taking on Jed Hue, who recently dropped down. We saw him look really good in his last match, but also be first time in his career first time in a long time we've seen Jed be the bigger guy in the match, leveraged his wrestling, eventually went to the legs and got it done. He is taking on Keith Krikorian. This will be a number one contender fight to then go probably and face the champion of lightweight, Ethan Crelinsten.
Yeah. Well, they've said it's a number one contender match. They've already made that comment at least.
Which I like. Again, it's one thing I've kind of hammered on for years that I wish more organizations would do that. Like, hey, give me some context. Like, hey, because you essentially have your champions. You can give your champions fights, and then you can create a feeder system where it's like, okay, your champions on the card, or hey, the next card, we're going to have two of these guys face off. The winner of this is the number one contender to then face off. And then you can have matches on your card that are, hey, this is for a number one contender where you can lead guys up into like a pathway.
And you can spread it out as opposed to like having everything on one event and then having, another event where you're like, what am I going to do? I don't have anything,
Yeah. It gives you context. I wish more events would, across all combat sports, have sort of pathways for the title that people can kind of progress, because it gives us, again, stuff to talk about where it makes this matchup a lot more interesting.
And if you give us rankings, it, even helps us even more.
Yeah. Which is kind of who's number one does, but I wish that they're a little bit arbitrary in a lot of places where it's like doesn't necessarily mean 4 is going to fight 5 for 1. They kind of just match up people within the rankings.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different organization, different discussion. I have really liked Keith's game recently.
Yeah.
We've seen him every other week almost.
Yeah, he just won something out in Arizona. He did one of those Art Suave things again.
Yeah.
He won that match. He won Combat Worlds, or the tryouts for Combat Worlds.
Yeah,
I think it was the tryouts.
The internal tryouts for 10th Planet. He won that. That's happening shortly, I think.
Like around Christmas.
Yeah, they have like 4 events, like back to back. They have an event on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they're running 4 events.
And it's in Cancun, and you can get like a hotel and all.
It's like a whole package. Yeah. I looked at it. I was like, it was. It
looks fun, but it doesn't look fun. It's one of those things that I don't know if it would be too much for me to actually do.
You kind of wonder what the vibes would be like the entire time. I looked at it for the price for my wife and I was like, I was curious, like, we can go to Cancun for a week and watch a bunch of jiu-jitsu, and I went, it's a little more expensive for both of us than I would like to do. Also, it's like, it's a big event.
It's a lot of stuff going on.
So Keith has looked phenomenal. Jed has looked very good, and I think early in this matchup, we will see these two guys wrestle.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see Jed, because we saw it last match, leveraging into the wrestling. I think Krikorian is probably a better wrestler.
Yeah.
But I think Jed is game enough where he can start to get something going. I think eventually Jed is going to go into the legs. That is sort of what we see Jed like to do. I think the real question in this match is, do you think the leg locks of Jed Hue can beat the leg locks of Keith Krikorian?
And that's you never know about that kind of thing.
And that's literally like, you never know. I can't really, like, it's not a guess. But you take the area where both guys are very, very strong. Yeah. I think Jed Hue is more known for his leg locks. But
and you also have the problem of how long has Keith been over there? Did he go out a couple days ago?
Has he acclimated? Because Keith is another guy, though, that I think is so used to the travel that I think it wears on him a little bit. Yeah. But we've seen him bounce and do events all across the world so frequently and like day to day. Like he'll do an event on Saturday, he'll do an event on Sunday.
He has to have more airline miles than like anybody.
Yeah, because he travels a ton.
All over the place.
I mean, we'll frequently see him come over to the East Coast here, do a finishers, and do another event. Like he'll do back-to-back events on like a Friday and like a Saturday, or Saturday and a Sunday. Like it is frequent that we see Keith doing that. And this match is odd to kind of put my head around, because I'm trying to think of how they both like to enter leg lock exchanges. And Krikorian, they both will hit really good counter leg lock exchanges. I think Krikorian is more confident with the chokes off of the exchanges and being able to wrestle out of the exchanges and take a better position. Yeah. Whereas Jed wants to keep bringing you back into leg lock exchanges. Like he will roll through into the legs, where Krikorian will come out of a leg lock exchange and then hunt top position, much like kind of Johnny Grippo does. Yeah. Like I always think back to the match with like Johnny Grippo and Jordan Holy, all of those matches they've had where Holy goes into the legs, And then Gianni will come out from that, go to top position, go to knee on belly, and then go to head and arm from the top or go to the back from there.
Yeah.
Keith, I think, follows a really similar pathway in a lot of his matches where he's like, he will take the next opportunity. And something we saw him do sort of when he won West Coast Trials 2022, finally, was we saw him finally kind of diversify his game out where it's like, I'm not just going to go for the sub.
Yeah,
I'm going to take the positional victories as they come.
And he's also not the type that's just going to go into the legs and stay in the legs. He'll go in the legs, play with it a little bit, come up, maybe take your back off of it. If not, get to a better position. Then he might try to flying armbar you. You might try, he does a variety of different, he kind of keeps it moving all the time, and it's a bunch of different submissions. So,
I kind of think this will be, I think Jed will definitely have moments in this match. I think this
well, and Jed has a weight advantage.
Yeah. I think this goes to decision.
Yeah.
I think this goes to decision, and I think it is a close decision, if not, unfortunately, a split decision. I kind of want to lean Keith here. Again, I always, you know how I pick fights.
Yeah.
I always go with the champion. Like, Keith's the champ. He understands the Polaris rule set.
But he's the champ in a lower weight class.
Correct. Yeah, for a number one contendership. So Jed's going to be, again, bigger. And we've seen Keith get out-positioned and out-sized by guys like Kenta Iwamoto. That was at 170. That was at welterweight. And Kenta was big for that match, too. But we saw Keith kind of be able to get shut down by Kenta in that match. I don't think Jed has the same kind of game that Kenta had in their Sogi match. But again, we have seen Keith struggle with bigger guys. We've also seen Keith versus guys like Emil Fisher, who's 40 to 70 pounds bigger than Keith, and Keith dealt with Fisher. Again, Fisher's going to play a bottom game, but we saw Keith deal with that weight advantage, very, very well. I think that's more of a stylistic thing here. I don't think Jed is going to come in enormous versus Keith, but it is a problem that we have seen Keith run into before. I almost referenced Keith's match with Buchecha. You're like, that doesn't really count, but
not really.
Yeah,
it's overall, completely two different things.
Overall, I think in one of these matches, Jed will get a good bite on something. He'll get a good bite on a leg, either a straight or a heel hook. I kind of think that Jed will play with the straight ankle lock here, and one of those rounds will be Keith sort of defending the straight ankle lock and working to get positional advantage off of it, and then having to counter into top position. So I definitely think one of these, these three scoring periods is going to go that way for Jed Hue, because Jed Hue's just going to have a strong attack every match. Jed Hue at one point has a really strong attack on someone. It's just kind of one of the hallmarks of his style. The question is, if Jed can put two of those together, an early one, like he can win a first round and a third round, or a second round and a third round. If Jed can have two of those really nice attacks on Keith, can Keith, who I think will win the positional game here, will he be able to get off enough of his offense or put Jed in bad enough spots? Can he get to Jed's back and throw something in? Like, that's what I think the dichotomy and the dynamics of this match is going to be. I think Keith is definitely going to be the quicker guy here. Again, Jed can make the weight, I think, but is going to be. We've seen Jed at like light heavyweight before.
Yeah, but is Keith going to get not overwhelmed, but is he going to tire out after a while? Trying to go against a bigger guy, and trying to keep that pace.
Because Jed also does keep a pace too. Like he will kind of stay on you.
I mean, just because as a smaller person and you're trying to keep up with a bigger opponent, where Keith actually might not have to cut, and that might be a big thing.
Yeah, you're super comfortable even if you flew across the world.
Yeah,
you're not cutting the weight. You feel pretty good still.
Yeah, so it might not be as big of a weight gap as worth explaining it to actually be, but. Keeping up pace against a larger opponent, and not getting under them, is a problem.
You have a pick here for this one? I like again. Keith's kind of my guy. I like Keith just for Keith being the champion. Understand the Polaris rule set. You never know what
Keith is actually going to do, and I feel like he has the ability to do it. And I think that'll be, I think Keith will win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 2-1. Like, whoever will win this, I think it'll be Keith will get to the back at one point.
Yeah.
But Jed is pretty crafty and able to get out. And I'm not sure if Keith can put Jed away. I know he can, but I'm not sure if Jed will be able to get out. I think it will be a back take to leg lock exchanges. And I think it will really come down to who wins one of the leg lock exchanges in the eyes of the judges late in a round. Is sort of what I think it's going to come on to. If Krikorian can keep a pace, I think he wins this. If Jed can sort of outpace Keith and tire him out, I think Jed can win this.
Yeah.
So I think it's close. Honestly, the more we kind of talk about it and think through it, the better I actually think the matchup's going to be. Because at first I was like, I'm not really sure. And thinking about it more and looking at how Jed has looked at Polaris, like, but Jed was like, I think, Ash Williams was undefeated at Polaris until recently. Yeah. Like, Jed Hue has looked phenomenal on Polaris for a long time now.
I was looking up his record.
Yeah, his record. Like, he only has that one loss to Mateusz Szczynski where he, like, broke his foot in the grossest way possible. But that was back in 2023. And Roberto Jimenez. But again, that was in 2022. So we're talking about matches that for 2 years ago. He's a win over Oliver Taza, Alan Sanchez, Paul Craig.
Unknown result.
Oh, look at that versus Max Bickerton. Oh, that's fine. So Topology has some records for him. We go through all the records.
We were going through records and how funny it is that some of these that say decision are actually draws.
Yeah, on Topology, it goes decision. A draw for grappling is listed as a decision. It's listed as a draw on the side.
Yeah.
But in the actual match result, which I love Topology has, it lists as decision as opposed to because technically it goes to decision, and the decision is a draw because there can be no winner for Polaris, for the squads events. So I'm going Keith 2 rounds to 1 versus Jed Hue. And then I think he will take on Ethan Crelinsten, and that'll be a really fun, again, whoever, Jed or Keith take on Ethan. That's a really fun matchup.
Yep.
Because Ethan's look phenomenal. You picking Keith? You picking Jed?
I'll go Keith.
Okay. So let's talk about the next match. We have Helena Crevar versus Nia Blackman. Crevar is the champion. This is a title fight. Crevar is a very known quantity now, and unfortunately for everyone in her division, just keeps getting better. And keeps getting better.
And Nia's really good.
Absolutely.
I mean,
she's a trials winner.
She's a trials winner. She's a worlds winner.
Mm-hmm.
She's won a lot of matches and she's done really good things. But that's a hard.
Crevar just keeps getting better and keeps getting better and keeps. Did Crevar win ADCC? Or did she get second ADCC?
No, she got second.
Okay. Who did she lose to in the finals? Who is the champion right now at under 65? It's not Daddy. It's not Mosquito. It's... I'm totally blanking on here.
I know. My brain is blanking. This
is a tough match for Nia.
It is.
Because, again, really just because Crevar has just looked so... Not unbeatable. Like she is beatable, but man, is she difficult to beat with any level of like consistency. Her closed guard and her open guard are some of the best in the world. I think the best in the weight class, aside from like Fionn. But we haven't seen that matchup yet. I think we will sooner than later.
Baby Vieira
beat her in the finals. Yeah.
That's who. But she is beatable. She's very, very hard to beat. And Nia has had some really good matches recently, and she's had some really good performances recently. But I don't think that anybody at this point can really beat her.
Your best option for Crevar is to wrestle her down in most rule sets. But realistically, in this rule set, it doesn't matter. We know Crevar's going to pull. Crevar is going to pull in this match. You're then going to have to engage Crevar's open guard.
And not get triangled or armbarred.
Not get triangled, not get armbarred, not get your back taken, not get your leg, the false reap entry, the leg lock entries that she goes for, the straight ankle lock or the heel hook. Like, Crevar has so many things that Nia is going to have to deal with, and I just don't think... that Nia can deal with all those. Yeah. But I think at one point... Nia is going to, or Nina. I keep.
No, I think it's Nia.
It's Nia.
I think it's Nia. And
okay, it auto-corrected. It auto-corrected to Nina, and that's what's throwing me off. At one point, I think Nia is going to have a momentary, just a little. Should be a little slower to defend something or a transition, or she'll try to get in front of a transition, and Crevar will close the distance in an inversion. I think Crevar subs Blackman here.
Yeah.
I think probably into the legs. Blackman's a good leg blocker, but I just think that Crevar is so kind of tenacious, and the rate of improvement that we've seen Crevar go through is terrifying.
Yeah,
Every match we see, she has new shit in the way that you can only be really doing up until your early 20s, where it's every single match it's she can we saw her lose at trials.
Yeah,
East Coast trials. She I got out wrestled essentially by
Yeah.
Mo Black. And then we saw her at West Coast trials, and it was like, oh, not only does she kind of know how to wrestle now, she's willing to do it, and she can beat a lot of people with this. And, oh, the other things that she was good at before, the triangle game, the open guard game, the going into the legs, like all of that also got better.
Yeah.
Whereas like later career, we'll see athletes a lot of times like, yeah, they'll get better at a thing at sort of the expense of what got them to the dance initially. We're not seeing that with Crevar, and that's what makes the prospect of her going against like someone like Fionn for me really, really exciting. Again, Nia can absolutely take a decision here. She can stall Crevar out, which we've seen happen. She can like get up on the scorecards early. She can blast a takedown. She can start to get to the side. She can have enough activity early and put Crevar on the defensive enough early, and then have Crevar be getting back into her game.
The problem is, even if you blast a takedown on Crevar, she's gonna get you when you land it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like she's crafty, and she knows how to beat an aggressive game. Like if you're more aggressive towards her, it's almost like you're giving her more
opportunity,
and things to play with.
I'm just sort of trying to think of like what Blackman can do here. It's like I think you come on aggressive and early versus Crevar. You maybe take the first round if it's 3 minutes and 20 seconds on like, hey, I just did something. I got her down. I was in her guard. I was moving around. And then Crevar then has to make up those last 2 rounds if she can't sub you. And if she's on the ground and Blackman is like moving and like in and out of her guard, potentially can take a really close decision here. But I just think that Crevar has more tools overall to be able to submit Blackman, and she's going to have those opportunities just with how Nia sort of engages, comes out, and how she passes. Like she tends to pass low, which we haven't seen people have a lot of success with recently against Crevar.
No.
I mean, even in 2022, I saw her at the ADCC World Open, like people weren't having a lot of success passing her low then, and that was even before she made the move to New Wave.
Yeah.
So I think Crevar retains here. I like Blackman's game, and Blackman has been looking even better from like her trials runs, from her first trials to her second trials that we've covered in recently.
And Nogi Worlds and everything.
Yeah, Nogi looked good at Nogi Worlds, but I just think that Crevar is so hard to beat.
Yeah.
That you have to be kind of someone like Fionn or someone like Baby Vieira to be able to like have that kind of veteran experience at the highest levels to be able to kind of outthink and cool. Like you have to win the tactical game and the technical game simultaneously, because if you kind of slip up at any point, Crevar takes you out. So should be a fun match. I love seeing Crevar compete. I'm going Crevar by sub. I'm going to go, I kind of think footlock here.
I don't know what's up, but I'll go submission.
Okay. Next one we have Eoghan OFlannigan. Or is there one you want to talk about first?
We'll go Eoghan OFlannigan.
Eoghan OFlannigan versus Phillipe Geyer.
I guess so. That's like the cheese.
It is. I said it like the cheese.
Yeah.
Eoghan OFlannigan is replacing Pat Downey. We were supposed to see Pat Downey versus Geyer. Now we are having Eoghan OFlannigan, who is going up in weight here.
Yes.
So he's going to be the smaller guy. Again, Owen's a big dude anyway, but he's going to be the smaller guy versus Phillipe, who is jacked.
Yeah.
He looks huge. Nogi European silver medalist. This is really, can Owen deal with a bigger, stronger dude that wants to smash on top? And
I think Ian has dealt with that.
Yeah.
And deals with that well.
Because he's a really good inverted long leg locker at 88 kilos. Like, you're talking about everyone that's ever tried to beat him ever. It's like, hey, man, I'm going to try to smash past you to stay away from your legs. That's kind of what Phillipe wants to do.
He's like, I can put my feet to my head and then lock you.
Like, hey, good luck passing you. Good luck getting around. Good luck getting my back. Like, Owen is just such a hard dude for a lot of guys to deal with. And I kind of, I'm not as familiar with Philippe's game, but I sort of think that he kind of lands where Owen wants to fight him.
Yeah.
And he lands in an area where it's like, cool, Owen's going to be getting into your legs. Like, can you stall him and push him out enough? Which, again, is probably what he was planning to do to Pat Downey.
Yeah.
Like, it's a similar game plan for how you're going to deal with both these guys, honestly.
I think Pat Downey is a completely different person to think about going against.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think your thought process is kind of the same thing, where it's like, I kind of just got to be on him and like pressure and push and push and push and push.
But when is Pat Downey going to go to his back?
Never.
That's what I mean.
Never going to go to his back.
So
ever.
like, Geyer, if we say him like the cheese, Geyer is going to like go to his butt and try to attack him at that point.
Right.
Or out wrestle him.
Which we're probably not going to wrestle Pat Downey.
So,
but Owen's probably going to pull here.
I don't know. Pat he has decent collegiate wrestling.
He's a world team member, too.
He is, but recently he hasn't been doing the best.
Yeah.
Like
in the US trials, he looked a little flat.
Yeah. Now CGI he looked great, and CGI he knew how to play the game, and he knew, and nothing against Pat Downey. I don't think he's going to go to his butt.
No.
I mean, he will as a joke, but not like
Yeah, he'll wrestle up out of it immediately and blast you up.
So it's kind of like you're going from somebody who isn't going to want to go to their butt to somebody who's going to want to immediately.
Who's going to want to pull and then leg lock you, like Owen OFlannigan.
So it's kind of like a completely different change of, what you were going to do. The
pressure is still there, but it's also like you're going to be pressuring standing into a guy that wants to wrestle with you versus Owen, who is like, there's no need for you to wrestle Owen because he's going to pull on you and you're going to be defending leg locks. And so you're out at space on him. Again, I just think the way that like the game that Phillipe is going to have on top is going to play into, even if he has a size advantage.
Yeah.
Unless he can completely stifle Owen. But I think Owen's going to be able to be active enough that if it goes to decision, he's going to be the one that has been doing something. Yeah. Even if he's on the bottom. Yeah. And that's sort of my thought. Even
if Geyer is an IBJJF, because it looked like he did Nogi Euros and a bunch of other IBJJF things, doesn't mean that he's dealt with some of the leg locks that someone like OFlannigan is going to throw at you, because they're going to be illegal in that rule set. Because he's still a brown belt, right?
I believe.
Wasn't he a brown belt?
I believe so.
And I think brown belt you can. I'm trying to think. Brown belt and black belt adult, I think, is the only one where you're allowed to like heel hook now.
Is it brown belt now or is it only black belt?
I think it's brown belt and black belt adult only.
That would make sense. I always forget if they changed it to brown and black or only black. I think you're right. It is brown and black, but it's only adult.
But then we're still not talking about like a lot of the more intricate leg locks that OFlannigan's could be able to pull. Because like, I don't know. IBJJF is always a little bit more civilized. I jokingly
the word
say
traditional is what we can use.
Traditional.
But,
I always joke around. That's the more civilized.
It's the more civilized tournament where it's like, I don't reap my leg to the side. How dare you?
Yeah, how dare you? How dare you?
ADCC's like, it's like you grip a rip, you do whatever you want to do with that leg. Which again, I know what I like.
But so I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think Owen here. I think Owen is able to be more active. I think Phillipe is going to come in here.
I'm sure about Owen. Owen's going to win.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't know exactly how Phillipe would go about.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting. Again, it'll be interesting to see what Phillipe looks like in the Polaris rule set. It looks like again in the Polaris rule. He's been here before, but I'm very curious to see how he matches up with a guy that is very familiar with the Polaris rule set and with his own game like Owen is. So next one. Let's talk about it. Then I'll move on to the other matches in the card. We have Carlos Condit versus Venom Paige.
So one of the big draws to this card is Venom Paige is from London, and this event is in London.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to get some MMA fans in,
which is reasonable. Fill your card out, get people that are interested. Polaris has been doing that a lot more with a lot of the headline talent they've been bringing in for a while. Like they brought in Luke Rockhold, they brought in Polaris. Who's back then was Grappler. But they brought in who else? I'm blanking recently. They brought in the French guy. Last minute, they fought Owen Livesey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
They win their first card in France. Like they're Polaris is doing a good job trying to diversify the odds, which is why they use the rounds and use the scoring. Like I think Polaris is doing a really great job over in Europe, like bringing in more casual MMA fans into these cards. Carlos Condit's a huge name. Been retired for a little bit. Venom Paige, I think, is like getting slated to face Leon Edwards. For the title.
So Condit has actually done Polaris before.
Yeah. It's been a while though.
He won against Ashley Williams.
Yeah.
He lost by submission. But he's done Submission Underground.
Yep.
In 2021.
He also did
he heel hooked Jake Ellenberger.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And,
that was fun. We talked about that.
Yeah. And he's done he has 13 subs in his like MMA career. Which I mean is still significant.
I think
when you think
how
about
many
it,
does
I thought
MVP have?
I thought he had subs. I think MVP is mostly a standing
Kickboxer. He has the one corkscrew lock. He had like a standing lens lock in an early, but like on a Bellator fight, probably in 2016 or 17.
He has 3 submissions.
Okay. I think he's going to be bigger. I think he's going to be stronger than Carlos Condit.
Yeah.
Carlos Condit is going to have more grappling experience, but we haven't really seen Condit in a couple of years, and MVP is potentially going to fight for a world title in the UFC coming up sooner than later. I could have heard a bad headline here, but I thought they were slating him and Leon to face, which would be a crazy UK.
At where? On what?
At one of the UFCs. Because Leon Edwards is the champion right now.
I didn't think... Okay.
Wait, is Leon the champion still?
Dude, I don't watch enough UFC to tell you anything. I know that I thought that MVP was in like Bellator.
Yeah, he came over recently. He fought Kevin Holland. He beat Kevin Holland. So yeah, he's in the UFC now. So I really think that this is going to be kind of boring because I don't think either guy will engage they'll engage in an MMA kind of way, which is going to be in and out, as opposed to get like into who's going to play guard here. Like, is Carlos Condit going to be the guard player here? I don't think MVP is going to be the guard player here. So in that case, who are you sort of left with? Can Carlos Condit out wrestle Michael Venom Paige? Yeah, he can. But how strong is MVP? MVP is known for being like ridiculously strong. Can he cattle catch him? Can he intercept him? I think this is going to be mostly on the feet.
Yeah.
And I think that it will come down to a few big moments. And I kind of think that Condit may take this on activity.
I think Condit will win.
You think Condit will sub him?
He might. I mean,
does Condit have any leg lock wins?
I'm looking.
Because that seems like a really good like avenue versus someone like MVP. MVP has that one corkscrew lock that seemed like he just sort of grabbed and ripped it, if I'm remembering back to like the fight finish that I saw almost 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah, I
think Condit also has MVP also has like an armbar win, if I recall correctly.
He has a heel hook in 2004.
2004?
In pancreas.
Condit does.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay.
He has an triangle armbar.
Yeah, this is a tough toss-up match.
I want to say like something in my brain tells me that he has had that his jiu-jitsu, or he has shown a lot more jiu-jitsu in his fights than... I mean,
he's had to, given the era that he fought in the UFC. Like, the welterweight division was a bunch of wrestlers that you were gonna have to play on. Again, I think seeing MVP win this would not surprise me. MVP sort of knows how to win decisions. Seeing Carlos Condit win this with just being more active and going for more stuff, because MVP is notoriously... like a counterpuncher. Like, he's notoriously throws very little volume, not gonna put a pace on you, and Condit will. So I think Condit could win this just on pace alone, but it wouldn't surprise me to see like an age, like a gap here, and like Condit's been retired for a little bit. MVP is still sort of at the tail end of his career, but still like active as a pro fighter. That you could see that come into play here, but I kind of want to lean. If it's an okay match, I want to lean Condit just on activity and being willing to engage in these sequences more than MVP is willing to.
I agree.
So, also on this card, anything else on that matchup?
Nope.
Also on this card, we have Kieran Kachuk versus Carson Coles. You said Kieran's been like in Italy for a while, so probably acclimated over to the UK.
Yeah.
This should be, again, a fun match. Haven't seen Kieran in a bit here. We also have Ben Hodgkinson versus Dave Weston. Which should be fun. Again, Ben Hodgkinson, sandbagging Creante. He's Australian, been at B team off and on for a long time. Trials medalist. This will be fun. Dave Weston is a guy that's up and coming on the UK scene.
He's the king of the North.
Yeah, king of the North. This will really be. I think this really come down to like where Ben is at. When Ben has really, I like his game a lot, but he can be somewhat inconsistent in his performances. Sometimes he will do phenomenally well. Other times he will kind of have like an off day. And so if he is on, Ben is so much fun to watch here. But if he's off, Dave can absolutely put him on his back and like Ben will play guard.
Yeah.
Ben plays a really lanky, long guard. He'll go for arm bars. He's a very good leg locker. I think that's more than likely what he's going to be able to do to Dave Weston here.
Yeah.
But Weston can also, if Weston just like settles him down and doesn't let Ben get off, I think he can take a decision here.
Yeah, because I think Ben will also could get frustrated.
Yeah.
If it's just like a lot of Dave trying to like stay on top, smother him, kind of stretch him out, and not allowing him to really get anything going.
Yeah. But I think that Ben is typically pretty good at making space and making distance, and like he's very flexible. I'm curious. Ben had a knee injury. I said a couple of knee injuries across his career. If he still will have the strength in his knee to be able to push a guy like Weston off in the way that he needs to. I'm leaning that he will be able to. I'm leaning that he will be able to get something done. He will be able to get into Weston's legs and hit a heel hook.
And he's in enough good rooms.
B team.
That he would know
M1.
that he would know if he's at the level to be taking a match like this or not.
Mm-hmm. So again, I think that Ben Hodgkinson takes this one, and I probably takes it by heel hook. So those are all the match. Oh, we also have Rosa Walsh versus Sula-Mae Loewenthal, the Asian Trials winner. Yep. Rosa Walsh, Fionn Davies, black belt. We've talked about her on Grapple Fest. We've talked about her on Polaris. We've talked about her on a bunch of the UK cards, and even on the US cards nowadays. I think she was with Pedigo for a while.
Yeah, I think she's back in the UK now.
I think she's Irish, but I think she's back in the UK.
Oh yeah, she went back in Ireland. She's back in Europe. Let's say it that way. I've seen her on a lot more European cards recently.
Yeah, this will be a very, very fun matchup. Again, Sula-Mae is the Asian Trials winner, but I think we will see sooner than later Rosa have a big like breakout performance. This could possibly be that. Again, Sula-Mae is very good. The 80cc rules and the Polaris rules are pretty different, actually. And I think in this matchup, where we've seen Rosa do well is in the matches where she can keep a high pace.
Yeah.
And she can kind of like Fionn, honestly, which makes sense because she's a Fionn black belt who likes to kind of stay in you and stay a pace, keep on you. And I think that will probably at least put her in a position to win a decision, unless Sula-Mae can get her arm or get her back, like we saw her do at Trials to a lot of people that she beat in Trials. So I think that's sort of the dynamic of that matchup. But it should be good. Again, the Polaris cards are always great. They're always like midday for us here in the U.S.
It's on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah. And it's, again, one of the reasons I keep it's probably like the primary reason that I keep UFC Fight Pass is for Polaris. Like Fight Pass Invitational cards are great. I love those cards. But Polaris is like it's like jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu fans, and I love the Polaris cards.
They're wonderful cards to watch.
Hopefully we have some gi matches as well. Again, I like seeing Polaris pull out the gi occasionally.
We also don't know if any of these are gi matches.
Yeah.
It could be possible.
They throw them on the card, which I love. Like occasionally it's like, oh, it's a gi match. We get to talk about a gi match on Polaris. So it should be good. Midday.
It would be hilarious if the Carlos Condit and Michael Venom Paige match, they both came out in gis.
Oh, it's a gi match. That would be so funny.
It'd be so wild.
Just as a joke. Just like, hey man, we're both no gi guys.
Yeah.
They just throw it on. Put Nick Rodriguez in a gi, and you're just like, let's do it, guy. I would love it. Again, I'm just a fan of grappling.
I like chaos, so it's always good when you throw a little chaos in things.
It would be fun. So that's Polaris. Also happening this week. Any other kind of thoughts on Polaris?
Nope.
I do hope that we don't have some of the weird, like what kind of we had with J-Rod, where it's like you watch it in the match and he's just winning handed the last.
But you forget that if they win the first two rounds, the third round really doesn't count.
You have to sub.
It does, but you have
to sub. Yeah, I hope we don't see that again. Again, it's a feature of the rule set, and athletes have to know and understand like that you have to win rounds if you're going to go to a decision. So if you're losing sections of the match, like you have to sub. So it's again something athletes have to get used to. The optics of it were a little tough though for some of those matches. So I hope we don't have that again. But again, overall, Polaris is one of the best produced events that we cover, and so I'm really happy to have Polaris again. Let's move on to Fury 11 Pro. This is at Langley.
Air Force Base.
Yeah, which is Air Force Base close to us, where they do. You watch the shuttle launches, right? Not Langley. No, sorry. I'm thinking of
No, Langley's in Virginia.
Yeah, that's not what I was thinking. A different location.
Yeah, it's just a base. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they do there, but anyway, it's a base. They have planes there, And when Fury Pro does these matches, they always have the guys like run out of the airplane hangars, or not the hangars, but like the actual bay of the airplane.
The back of like, it looks like the back of like an AC-130.
Yeah,
it's a big plane. They run out of the back, like the ramp for it.
Yeah.
So
like right into the cage or right into wherever they're going to compete at, which I think it's fun. I think it's neat. But and the main event is going to be Herbert Burns.
Not Gilbert. Not his brother. His younger brother.
Yeah, not to be confused with Gilbert. Versus Patrick Sabatini.
This should be fun. Both these guys. I think Pat's still in the UFC. Herbert Burns was in the UFC. This is this is one of those that I'll just sort of watch and we'll talk about after the fact.
Yeah, it's also a last minute. I think they just dropped the card today.
Yeah, we just got this like right before recording.
Yeah, I haven't seen any. Like I hadn't seen them even talk about doing this until. So I don't know why it was so delayed, but things happen.
This will be, again, Pat's very good. I mean, Burns is a very, very good grappler. He's not as good as his brother, not as good as Dorino was.
Yeah.
But still a very, very good grappler. Sabatini, also a very good grappler, known for like pace and exciting matches. This very much could go either way in the Fury rule set.
Yeah.
It's judged like MMA, which if Burns can get on top of you and sort of slow you down and stay on top, he can do that. But if Pat can out-wrestle you, which he probably can, then Pat stays on top and does probably the same thing. I think this is going to be a very much look like an MMA wrestling match where top player wins is what my guess would be. So I'm guessing Sabatini here will take this, but again, I can't really speak to how these guys are going to match up in a jiu-jitsu format like this.
Yeah. Because
the Fury rules, I tend to struggle a little bit sometimes with how Fury judges.
Yeah.
It's mostly MMA, but sometimes it's kind of a little more confusing.
Yeah, we've had some other matches like the Aljamain Sterling match in Fury that was kind of
versus Danzler. You're like,
okay. Where like there's.
It's close to MMA, sort of, kind of. So. That card is happening this weekend as well.
Both on UFC Fight Pass. And
they're both Fight Pass
on the 2nd, so they'll probably be back to back. Polaris will probably be in the afternoon. Fury will be at night.
Yep. So it should be a lot of fun, and that's really all we got this weekend.
Yeah.
Polaris will be again super fun. We're gonna preview next week the IBJJF Crown. That card is shaping up to be good. I hope that they have it lit well this time. I will talk about that next week. Miranda, what else do you have going on this week? Anything fun going on?
Saturday, I'm doing a JT Torres seminar.
Good. Another one?
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Hell yeah! I've never done a seminar with him.
Outside of Philly. Yeah. Supposed to compete on Sunday.
Supposed to? You gonna do it, or are you gonna?
I mean, I'm supposed to compete. I don't know. I don't know.
I got my knee bent backwards this week. That was fun.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It's great. It's healing up.
Great. I might be going back for Karjitsu too, which will be fun.
Can you talk about that yet?
I mean, I don't know too much about it. I just know that it's probably going to happen.
Okay.
So
can you talk about what card you're going to be on, or no? What can you talk about for Karjitsu?
I don't know.
Karjitsu is great because you have NDAs, and so I never know what we can talk about, what we can't talk about.
All I know is that it's going to be in LA. It's possibly in a couple weeks. And that's about all I know right now. It's a women's 160 tournament.
I think your thing has. You might have to cut for that now.
What?
You might have to cut for that.
For 160? No, I'm right there.
Okay.
I'm right around there. I'm a little big right now, but I'm not that big.
I think your match on Karjitsu has like 5 million or 7 million views.
Some ridiculous
which
number.
Is crazy. Occasionally, it's funny. You talk about getting recognized for that.
Yeah, I do. It's
wild. Like that was.
I have way too many friends that have told me stories of like family members being like, "Dude, is this what you do?" and sending them my video, and then be like, "No, that is not what I do." I know who that is.
Yeah.
Which is great. So, I'll do that again. I'll tell you all about it because I think it's going to be a live event, which is even more fun because then
that's cool.
Because then I don't have to worry about.
Yeah, you have to look at me like, man, I can't tell you anything.
But I look
like Miranda, blink twice if it was awesome. You're like, blink. Okay, good to know.
So, besides that, just another week of jiu-jitsu and chilling, seeing what happens.
Yeah, I have a bunch of my students that are gearing up to compete a bunch, and they're like, "Can you coach me?" I'm like, "I am out of town. You need to let me know more than a week in advance." They're like, "Oh, I forgot." I was like, "You need to tell me when you register for things." Because the funny thing is, locally here in the Maryland, Virginia, DC area, we have like a tournament or two tournaments. We had 2 tournaments this weekend. in addition to the fight that I had to corner at.
Yeah, in two different locations.
Yeah, and so some of my students are competing in one and then the other, and some of them are doing back-to-back, and it's very funny because it's a super awesome situation to be in where you have enough tournaments. It's unfortunate and fortunate at the same time where if you want to compete, there are plenty of avenues to do that locally here, which is great. But the other problem is there are more organizations than ever, and so all of the tournaments are a lot smaller, which it makes them run easier, but it also makes your divisions a lot smaller. So if you have like a athlete that is like a blue belt and you're trying to get them a lot of matches, sometimes they may only have 2 or 3 people in their division, and so it's like not going to give them the depth of matches that you necessarily want them to have.
Yeah.
But I would much rather have more tournaments than fewer tournaments, because we remember coming up where there was like one tournament like a quarter. And it's like, yeah, this is the one tournament you can do. It's like, okay, I guess I'm doing this tournament.
Yeah.
Our gym's doing this tournament.
But it's almost easier that way.
It is, because then you can kind of, your whole team can prep together versus like the constant ringer of everything's coming up locally for the next event. But again, I'd much rather have it this way, where there's so many tournaments for you to kind of leverage different rule sets and different things you can do.
But I also
versus
feel like
those long,
a lot of
ones.
Times it's a money grab.
Yeah, that's unfortunate sometimes.
And so, but we'll see.
So a lot of coaching in my future, and then a lot of students that are they're getting better, which is awesome to see.
Is great.
Mm-hmm. So I have nothing else going on, Miranda. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Reruns. And that where it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.